Hey guys, and welcome back. So SJM's father has now submitted a brand new petition. This time it's to the National Assembly of Korea, which is our version of Congress, and it is asking for the full release of CCTV camera footage. Yeah, that'll probably include the really coveted CCTV camera footage from the bridge that we would like, that would give us clearer and closer images of what happened that night really on the river. And it's asking for a full scientific-based investigation into what really happened that night. So in his latest blog post, SJM's father titled it Jung Min. So it's basically like and it's like shorthand typing in a text message that SJM wrote to Mr. A at 11:33 p.m. from the convenience store. And it could mean a variety of things, but most likely it will mean 가는 중, like on my way. At that point, remember, the two guys had just come through the bunny tunnel and they got to the Banpohan River Park. They stopped by the convenience store in the Banpohan River Park because they had nothing to eat, and it looked like they were going to order chicken and have it delivered, but there were so many people at the park, so when they found out that it was going to take like over an hour, they nixed that idea. They went over to the convenience store, they got some snacks, and we saw from the convenience store CCTV camera footage on the way out, SJM was like kind of like eyeing the picnic mats, being like, oh, maybe we should get a mat, but then they just left, right? Well, it turns out he went back alone this time to go get a mat. So he went and got a mat, and then he also picked up a chocolate milk. And then the CCTV camera footage that the dad now has shows him alone, and that's what he posted. He posted all these photos of SJM alone, and he was just waiting for the cashier, and you could see like SJM's like all impatient. He's like, oh, when is this line gonna move? And I feel really bad, like this is the last store that he had to go to in his life. And yeah, and remember I visited that store, and that store now feels creepy. You know something weird went on with the people in that store, or you know, like when you go to a place where just something bad has happened. It did give me that vibe because it's too clean. You know, when they scrub it too clean, that's when you know something's up. Anyhow, so they showed that he showed those images, and he showed the last text message saying that like he was on his way, because it seemed like Mr. A was like impatient. Like, where are you, dude? Like, let's get this started. Why? Because SJM's father is trying to really, again, blast a hole into the whole theory that Mr. A was blackout drunk starting from 11:14. And he's basically saying that it doesn't make sense. You guys are kind of not credible by saying that he was blacked out from 11:14. Because of what he drank. Now he is basically poking a lot of holes at that claim, and now he is including a text message from Mr. A's mom and making her look real shady. So let's look at this. So we saw the pictures, and now we saw the receipt again. It shows a picnic mat for 6,000 won. It shows the chocolate milk for 1,500 won, so $6, $1.50. And then right next to the receipt is another receipt. It's a text message, and it seems like it's from 9 p.m. the day that everything happened, where they went looking for SJM at the park, and it seems like the mother is reporting back to SJM's father, like, this is what I found out from Mr. A, like, what happened. And she says, my son bought some alcohol near the Chamwon Cathedral. Then Jung Min bought more alcohol at the convenience store at the Han River Park. They went to the Han River convenience store multiple times. My son mainly drank chunga and makgeolli, while Jung Min mainly drank soju. My son drank all the chunga, and starting from when he drank the makgeolli, he couldn't remember very well. And then that character, Yu, is essentially a stand-in for unhappy face. Now, that looked like really kind of flippant. Like when you just kind of like throw in like no space and just like one little U, that kind of shows like not really a considerate, like unhappy. It's just more of like, I just got to throw it in there. And yeah, like if you're a millennial type of like, I'm interpreting your emoticons, yeah, that is the interpretation. Like that was not a very legitimate and heartfelt unhappy face. And so, yeah, we are seeing SJM's father really now shading the mom, saying like, this looks very suspicious, because according to the whole situation right here, it didn't look like they even had gotten started drinking. So SJM's father is saying like, well, definitely my son does not look like he had a drop to drink. Like they hadn't even sat down, and it didn't even look like they, like after they bought it, it didn't even look like he cracked it open, it had a swig, and then just gave it to him and said like, okay, I'll go get the picnic bag. It looks like literally like they're holding on to everything, and Mr. A is kind of like, hey dude, where the heck are you? I want to start drinking. Like, where is it? Just hurry up. And he's like, kyuk nian chut, like I'm on my way, So if nobody is drinking right now, and even if Mr. A had started drinking, do you think he's like going to be downing all the drinks? And even if he had downed all the bottles, like he's not going to get blackout drunk in like 10 minutes. Like it's going to have to go through your system before you black out. And if he had done that, we would not see him acting functionally. Like you would basically be poisoned right away if he had done it to that extent. And so Mr. Son Jung Min's father, is really poking holes and calling out yet again Mr. A and his family for seemingly what he's trying to say is like they are exaggerating this 7-hour blackout, like really trying to put this, on blast, saying that you guys really, you're expecting the whole country to really believe this. And so that is what he's really trying to say with this whole situation here. And I thought it was so funny that he had just put now the mom's text message there again, because he kind of sort of went after the mom before, and he blurred out, you guys have been wondering like, oh, do we know the name of the Mr. A and stuff? And so people do know his name, like, and they do know what he looks like. If you have the original CCTV footage, like the media people, they do know, they blur it out. And of course he knows, and he's blurred out the message on the screen here. But on one of them, it didn't look like he blurred it out too much. So I think he is getting real, his shade level, rising up there, rising up. So he now has a petition to the National Assembly. So I didn't realize this, but you can also petition the National Assembly. The petition to the Blue House to the president did not go well at all. Over 500,000 people signed that petition. And the answer back was, all I can say was just cheap. cheap. It was almost like a cut and paste from the police department's mid-investigation police report, like the front of it, like kind of like if there's like an executive summary like on a website, or like like if there's like an about us section like on a website, it's almost as if like they did like a copy and paste. That's kind of like what it was. It's basically repeating like what the police department had said. So according to the petition, so if you can get 100,000 signatures within 30 days, then there is a process where there can be action from the government. Now, I'll go through it, but at the time of this recording, where I'm recording this video, it's been about 3 days, and about 25,000 people have already signed it. And so I just want to give the caveat right now. If you're a foreigner outside of Korea and you don't have like a Korean registration number, like a Korean, like if you're an expat like me and live in Korea and if you have like a resident registration number, you can sign it. And it's the easiest is if you have like a Korean cell phone. But if you live outside of the country and you don't have a resident registration number, you can't sign it. And if you live outside the country, but you have like a Korean registration number, you can sign it still, even if you don't have a Korean cell phone number. And SJM's father did give instructions on how to do that on his blog, and I'll link that also in the description. But I will also link a petition that I made on change.org for a symbolic purpose for foreign people all around the world to sign an accompanying petition that will just I'll send it to SJM's father and probably like the floor leaders of the National Assembly and the communications department of the Blue House, just to say that the international community also, supports symbolically. All right, so this is how the process works for the National Assembly, which is our version of Congress. So if you get 100,000 signatures, which looks very likely within 30 days, then it goes to a committee in the National Assembly. Now, this is where it could be a little shady, because this is essentially like, I don't know who these people on this committee is. So it's basically like, they get the petitions that reach the threshold, and it's kind of like yes, no. So they get to decide like yes or no. And if it's a yes, then it's going to go to the General Assembly. Like it's going to basically be voted on by the National Assembly. And if it's a no, then they're going to basically be like, no, we don't want to vote on this. So if they vote on it, and if the National Assembly says like, yeah, this is something that we want to approve, then it goes to the government. So within the petition, it has a request. And in the request that SJM's father and the person who led this petition, because it said it's led by somebody named Kim, so I don't know who that is. And it says that they want the full CCTV camera footage. Probably they're really trying to force the hand of the government. Release all the CCTV camera footage. Release it. And to have a scientific-led investigation, because we do have to admit the investigation by the police department was led by something else. It was not led by science. We do have to admit that, even if it was the best effort, 35 teams, like 50 million people on the, case, like all these, like they tried their best, but we have to admit that it was not led by science. So that is the request. Now, if the National Assembly votes yes, okay, we want that to happen, then that goes to the government and to the appropriate governmental agency. And then that governmental agency has to then submit a report saying like what they did to resolve that issue. So it seems like a very lengthy process, but it seems like a very good strategy if SJM's father is like putting this like kind of like if this is like one dish that he's putting into one oven, and he's got like some other ovens, you know, that he can put other things to put in the, you know, for baking. I think it's a very good strategy, because along the way at each point, if he can keep going, is another opportunity for a media play. So hopefully it'll pass the committee, because it does look like he'll get 100,000 signatures unless something weird happens. But in 3 days, he's already at 25,000. And so even like while I was doing the notes, like it went up a few thousand. So I'm going to check right now. Let me refresh and see if it went up. Yep, it went up even more. So while I probably edit, it'll probably go up more. So yeah, it crossed the 25,000 mark now. It's almost 26,000. All right, so that is how that's going to work. And then so the petition that I made on change.org is essentially like the kind of like the sister version, and it's meant to just mirror what this petition is. And so yeah, hopefully you guys circulate it, sign it, and you know, make sure that it gets some sort of you know, circulation. It'd be, you know, kind of embarrassing if it doesn't, but I hope that, you know, we've all been like from the beginning of this case wanting to have some sort of signature, and I don't know why I never really thought of like making a petition. I just thought that maybe, you know, there's really no point in it. But I do think that in this case, it does have a chance of making a difference, because the National Assembly, of course, does not have to listen whatsoever to voices from around the world. And of course, some of them would take total like stances of like, I'm not listening to people outside of Korea. On the other hand, for reasons here or there, they do. And they don't want to be embarrassed by international opinions. And even for like business ties or other political reasons, they are also very aware of how they are viewed by people around the world. So the fact that this is now the National Assembly, where there are hundreds of people in it, increases the odds of having somebody who cares about their image abroad. Because before it was just like the police department, and before it was just maybe one media company's executives, and then before it was maybe just one presidential cabinet, you know, very limited. But now hundreds of people, hundreds of political careers, you know? So perhaps in this way, we have greater odds of, you know, if we're going duck hunting, you know, like there's a lot in the air right now. So hopefully we can get one. So I have no problem comparing them to ducks that we can shoot. So hopefully we can make a difference. So please circulate. Please circulate. Please circulate. All right, so that is that. And at the top of his blog, SJM's father also gave a really big shout out to the witnesses that probably do exist. He said that the people who took the photos at 2:18 a.m., the slumped over, keeled over picture of his son, and the picture at 3:37 a.m., the one that showed Mr. A by himself next to the tree talking to his parents. He said that without those photos, really, like you can't really move on. Like those were pivotal, important pieces of evidence. So shout out, yes, to the 218 witness who basically said that they took that photo because they were really suspicious of like Mr. A was like laying right next to SJM, sort of like grinding up on him and like like digging through his pockets and stuff. And then so they were just like taking some pictures. Like, you know, you're not supposed to do that, but thank God they did, because they just thought that that was real sus. They just wanted to take some of the back pictures of that. So that's how we got that picture. And then 3:37 a.m., we got that picture not because they really cared about like SJM or Mr. A. They were really captivated by the moon and the bridge. And they were actually apparently using like a DSLR, and they were using that flash. Remember, we had that flash from the DSLR confirmed by the CCTV camera way from the bunny tunnel that showed right at that moment at 3:37 a flash. So we know that that was the actual picture. And we know that that is more real and accurate than the so-called verbal testimony of the witness that said, oh yeah, we saw like Mr. A and SJM sitting on the picnic mat at 3:37 a.m. When we see the picture of Mr. A standing by the tree talking on the phone and no SJM at 3:37 a.m. So we know that that witness testimony is not legit, and yet they went with the illegitimate testimony instead of the picture. See, so we're seeing that the weighting of the evidence went towards the illegitimate rather than the legitimate scientific evidence. And that is why this petition seems very apropos, very logical, that we want to work with scientific and legitimate evidence that was not taken into account and not analyzed properly. That's all they're asking. So hopefully you can help out the cause and we could see something really move along here. Yeah, other than that, hope you guys are having a good weekend, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.